Welcome to another episode of News from the Heart with Swami Chaitananda. I have the very lovely privilege of getting to ask a direct question from a comment that Swamiji made to me one time relating to guns. We were talking about the potential of times getting harder in our country, people potentially getting more violent, resources becoming more limited, and a need to protect ourselves and our loved ones in the face of that type of chaos. And you had told me one day that our community and what your priority was to take care of as many people as possible and work together to survive through whatever. But if it came to a time where people were scaling the walls with guns, that the only time you would consider using a gun at that point would be on yourself.
True.
And I think I would pick up a gun to protect you. I don't know how I could sit and watch, I don't have children, but my children or my most beloveds in the face of a situation and not want to protect them.
Well, the ridiculous thing about the United States is that we have this whole ideology of individuality, which is completely inappropriate to our circumstance, and it is totally a manipulation. The wealthy find us much more easy to control when they are informing us that if we compete with our neighbors for resources, that more is available for us. And we're indoctrinated into the ideology of more is available for us. So we work harder and we struggle, and that doesn't work out. More isn't available to us because the fact is as long as we're, quote, I'm using a term, wage slaves, somebody is making more money off our labor than we are. Whatever we're making, somebody else is making more off of us than we're making off of our labor. That's the whole capitalist model. So coming to that place where we are, to realize we're just a wage slave, then it's easy for us to default in this whole environment of rugged individualism into a gun-toting mode. I have to get more than the next guy. I have to protect myself from his most base instincts, which will be not to work but to steal from me. And I must impose some order on my environment, and if need be, I will do that violently. I will protect myself, at the expense of anybody else. Well, where do we end up with in all of this kind of circumstance? We end up with no social sense whatsoever. One of the things about Northern Europe, even 2,000 years ago, Caesar cast the Northern Europeans as barbarians. He wrote in his book that he defeated the Helvetians, he defeated the Goths and the Gauls and everybody, Well, what he didn't tell you is that these people were the source of most of Roman technology. These people were peace-loving for the most part. The 250,000 Helvetians that he slaughtered, were completely peaceful people who were trying to migrate, and Caesar just seized upon their migration as an excuse to slaughter them as an opening gambit in a war against, all of his Roman competitors, and a war for, the 450 gold mines that were in Northern Europe at the time. So, we have, the reason why I bring this up is because the barbarians who were considered to be the enemies of civilization, of Roman sophistication, were actually not barbarian at all.
So the barbarians that could be crawling our walls for our resources would be our neighbors.
Right, but moreover, the point here is that the Northern Europeans had a much stronger sense of the value of cooperation and the importance of a civic aesthetic that promoted the best interests of everyone. They were rather a more socialistic society.
There was a way for that whole thing to go down so everybody would have survived.
I think that Rome was Rome's business model, and certainly Caesar's business model was kill people and steal their shit.
Mm-hmm. So
There was also they did also pillage the Dacians and steal all their gold, which is now Romania. But
so if you were there,
here's the point. Here's my point.
Mm-hmm.
My point is that there is a certain mentality that still is present in Northern Europe. The Germans, the Danes, the Swedes, to a lesser degree the Dutch, and the Belgians are more related to France. But the Northern Europeans continue to have a sense of community that is completely different than the United States. It is this absence of sense of community, intentionally, deprived us by the economic powers that dominate, the economic communities that dominate us, that promote the whole notion that guns are necessary to protect ourselves and blah, blah, blah. Well, guns are absolutely not necessary in the United States, and the problem with our whole gun ideology is that because we have this whole attachment to guns and this rugged individual sense that I get to judge, what's right and wrong for myself, and damn everybody else. Because of that, then we require a police, presence that is more heavily armed than the populace, and the dichotomy that you set up there is absolutely destructive to the fabric of the society. Now, going forward, personally, we're working hard here to become self-sufficient. We're working hard to become self-sufficient for two reasons. One is because we live in Portland, Oregon, and we know that at some point in the next 100 or 150 years, the Cascadia Fault's going to pop, and there's going to be a general disruption of everything, that all the infrastructure that we depend on for our daily lives. So I sit here at our organization is infinitesimally small. You figure I get maybe 150 people come to sit with me in meditation on Saturday nights. Joel Osteen gets 80,000 people in Houston every Sunday. We're nothing. But even so, I sit here and I feel like I have some responsibility for encouraging the people I share my life with, to be prepared for any really unfortunate occurrence, like a major earthquake. So we've set ourselves up, we're in the process of becoming food self-sufficient. We are already water self-sufficient, and we have enough water in our well to take care of the entire neighborhood. So, I have medicines accumulated, I have first aid equipment that's available, we're ready. But in the process of becoming ready for an earthquake or for a major political breakdown that could occur from massive migration relative to climate change. And look, this is gonna happen. There, you know, the Europeans in the news today, the Europeans are dealing with a migration issue. They've got 800,000 Pakistanis, Afghanis, Turks, and Syrians, Iranians, and Syrians.
That's not because of
I mean,
climate
Iraqis
change.
and Syrians. I know, but they have what they have is a migration crisis.
Mhm.
You know, that is absolute, and which they're freaking out about, which is nothing compared to the migration crisis that will happen. It will happen,
When places start flooding.
or drying out completely,
Drying out.
more significantly.
Oh yeah, no water.
You know, I mean, yes,
It's going to be
flooding,
too much water and no
the
water.
coasts are all gonna flood. All the coastal cities in the world are gonna be gone. Think about that. That's 50% of the population of the world is going to be in flux and have no place to settle. At that point, you know, what are people gonna do? Well, they're gonna be hungry. They're gonna be without shelter. They're gonna be, you know, distressed. You know, that
They're going to be
creates-
barbaric.
They're going to be violent, most likely. And that violence is going to create a crazy environment in which, you know, I look out and I say, okay, we have food here. What happens when somebody starts coming over the fence for it? Well, you know, who do I shoot? Well, I shoot myself because, you know, I mean, at that point, why do you want to live in this crazy fucking world? And the unfortunate thing is, this state of affairs is completely, totally unnecessary. It is totally unnecessary. If we understood that we are all a part of the same biosphere, and we begin to have a genuinely, dare I say, Christian attitude toward our fellow men,
It's preventable.
it's not even a question of preventive. We could today begin to create a culture which would make this transformation, you know, that is going to happen, a smooth and peaceful process. You know, there is the technology to feed a lot of people that's available. Hydroponic, aquaponic technology is simple, it's effective, you know, doesn't require a lot of space. I mean, I think in 1,500 square feet, we can grow enough vegetables to feed 120 people for a year. So it's an easy thing to do. It takes some investment, but it's not impossible. And if the government gave tax incentives for people to develop these technologies, it'd be everywhere.
1,500 square feet every couple blocks in every major
Yeah.
city.
This would be easy.
But then the grocery stores wouldn't make money. Or the big food, I know. Anyways, that's another subject.
Yeah, but the point being that, you know, the whole gun thing is a way in which the rich keep the poor killing each other and not killing them. That's, for me, the beginning and the end of the discussion. You know, the notion that some fool needs to carry a gun to protect himself and his freedom is total crap. Because the dumb shit guy, you know, any dumb shit guy who goes wandering down the street with a gun out, you know, trying to protect himself from what? Well, he feels like he doesn't have to obey traffic lights, and so he walks out in the middle of the street and blasts up some car that nearly runs him over. You know, because he's in the wrong, but he gets to make his own law. Like Mike Huckabee today declaring, you know, we should only obey the law if it's right. Well, personally, I think stoplights are fucking wrong. They're so wrong. And I'm not doing it. Well, what kind of dumb shit thing is that? You know, well, we've got so many dumb shits with guns who are just going to get their asses shot off by the cops. It's ridiculous. And the fact that we have, these crazy, violent policemen who, are shooting up black kids for no good reason, is in part because of the whole gun ideology in the United States. These guys legitimately are scared to death that somebody's going to pull a gun on them. And you never know, because in this country, every stupid fuck in the country gets to carry a gun. Well, this is completely unnecessary and inappropriate and dangerous, and it is completely detrimental to the quality of our social dialogue. So I am, look, I think a gun is just a gun, and like, who cares? But the fact is, this is a much bigger thing than just walking around with a gun or having a gun in your house to keep somebody from coming in on you. And the next thing is, these days, it's like, these guys go out into the woods with a 7mm Magnum rifle. I mean, actually, they're bigger guns than now that they use for hunting, but a 7mm rifle has a range of about 1.5 miles. I mean, a Marine Corps sniper with a 7mm Magnum rifle can pop somebody a mile, guaranteed. Well, what happens when you get some fool hunter out in the woods with a 7mm Magnum rifle who misses what he's shooting at and sends a bullet through a house 1.5 miles away and kills somebody? I don't know. I know that has happened. I don't know how often it happens, but I can say this. These days, there is so little game in the woods that I think, unless you had the complete misfortune to have given birth to 6 or 7 kids without a job, so that you are unable to feed them and forced to go out and shoot deer or rabbits or squirrels or possums or whatever you can shoot rats, unless you're in a dire situation financially, there is no excuse for killing anything. Just go to the damn grocery store and buy it.
What about learning survival skills for a time where there is no gas in the gas stations or groceries in the grocery store? I'm just being a...
No, that's fine, but the fact is, if we had any leadership at all in this country, or any leadership on earth that wasn't so fucking greedy that, they can only think of themselves, that would not happen. There would be, we have the capacity to absorb information on phenomenal scales that were even 50 years ago unimagined. There is no problem, logistical issue or social structural issue that we can't deal with if we put our minds to it. But we're so damn busy squeezing the last drop of oil out of the ground, for some individual's benefit, and, stealing the oil of the Arabs and the Iranians and the Iraqis. We're so busy with that we have no time and we don't have the money to actually address these issues which would fundamentally change the character of our social experience in a profoundly positive way.
So in light of the most likely reality that guns aren't going to disappear totally from our society, is there any situation that...
Nah, I'm just not gonna go there.
Just if it gets to a point, you'd rather be not on this planet
you
than...
deal with whatever, let everybody deal with it whatever the way they want. But me, I'm just not gonna be here. I'm going. Because why? I'm 67 years old. I've had a better life than 99% of the population of the earth all wrapped together. But, so I'm not committed to staying here. I don't care anymore.
Can you see any scenarios for any other individuals where that wouldn't be the situation?
It's like, what kind of world do you want your kids to grow up in? And what is the limit of the violence in the world that you're willing to encourage your kids to participate in? Mm-hmm. How bad do you want it to be before you say to your kids, it's not worth your being here?
Idealistically and in my heart, I completely get that, and I'm just trying to imagine being a mama with your kids.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like you think about it, okay, fine, there's no limit to the violence I will not engage in to protect my kids.
Right. Then what happens?
Exactly right. And what have you just done to your kids? And then, for the kids, if there's no limit to the violence that they will engage in to protect their kids, then what you have just set in motion, made in a small way, and encouraged in a total way is utterly violent chaos. And is that really a world to live in? I mean, and that's what's coming down the pike for us. Actually, you think 50% of the population of the world is condensed into the space that we live in now. We're going to say, I'm defending my space. Mm-hmm. And I'm killing them bastards. And then, them bastards are going to start killing us back. And we're going to have some real issues to face. And, America will be easy because one of the reasons why the government is turning the police forces in the country into a military force is to deal with the chaos that will ensue from climate-based migration, and mostly for the benefit of the rich, mind you, but still, and places like India and China and Africa are going to be places where we will know the meaning of hell. It will be articulated. So
it was a good answer to my question. I've been contemplating this for years.
Guns are fundamentally unfortunate. It's like, and now guns are not even. Now the military has weapons that make all the guns almost irrelevant. Now they have sound cannons and microwave devices that disable nervous systems. They have, they've got microwave cannons that can disable 100,000 people at once. And you'll just fall to the ground and shit your pants and empty your bladder right all over yourself because you got no nervous control anymore.
But you got a gun in your hand.
Yeah, god dang, that's right. Well, the government has everybody so whooped that it's, all this gun stuff is stupid. And that's how they say, sure, let all those lunatics kill each other because, it just makes us easier for us to come in and clean up after.
I should have asked you this question a lot earlier.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us. Whatever your position on gun control is, I sure hope that this gave you some food for thought. It sure did for me. I will do my best to try and not protect you with a gun if they start crawling over our walls.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you on another episode of News from the Heart.